it's a conservative system, and but it's very open, very supportive. So I decided to stay, and I insisted on my kind of approach that I did my studies, my PhD in India, and came to Germany as I wanted to do. And then I remember the same thing. I spoke to this person if he would be interested in hosting me. I would write a proposal, and so not that. First thing he asked me, so what can you do to make me famous? I was in India, don't have these kind of open sessions. I was at the poster session. I said, I didn't even know that this guy was famous. I, so I, then I wrote the proposal. He liked it, and luckily it went through. So very briefly, giving an open, I think we can discuss on some other things, but it's very simple. The German system is very straightforward. In every system, you have some hidden paths. So I think now the long line that we have similarly for every position there's a formal procedure how to go up to that. But there are obviously hidden mechanisms. I think we talk about that as well. So you start with the doctorate degree. This is open to anyone. Not only for German students. Especially, and we know that you can do it at the university. You can do it at several institutes. Also, a strong characteristic of German academia, you have institutes focusing too much on fundamental science like next class. So they have enormous respect for the politics. Money is given and no questions are asked. So this is nowadays really rare that you can get funding without being asked for what you are doing and how you are doing. There is an assessment periodically, but there is no upfront. There is no problem of the factor rate and so on. But then you also have for the industrial research, you have Fraunhofer kind of where the research is extremely focused, and this is because the funding is coming from the industry, so they want you to do exactly what they are suggesting. Once you have finished your PhD, there is obviously a transition phase into the next level of or like the next sphere, that is habilitation. So typically after completing your PhD, you can change your mentor. It's very important in Germany, you don't stay with the same mentor because you will otherwise have his or her signature in your research. So you move on, you find a new mentor who will be guiding you through the scientific independence, which is called habilitation. And this can then qualify you. This used to be, it has been, now I will talk about it, it's changing. This was the primary degree you will get for qualifying yourself as a university educator. So if you are allowed to teach. And this takes 6 years. In this 6 years, you can have PhD students of your own. You are allowed to be totally independent. So you should publish on your own, you should have your own funding where you are the principal investigator and so on. And that opens door to entry level professorship, which is in Germany they have this system of, initially it used to be C, C1, C2, C3, C4. C1 is like an assistant professor and C4 is a chair professor. It has been changed to W1, W2, W3. And W1 is like an assistant professor now, can have a tenure track option. That means if you perform well, this position is limited for 6 years, but if you perform well, it is assessed finally, then you can go to W2. And then finally you have higher levels of professorship, like you can become director of an institute, you have a full permanent position, W3. All perks, like you can say, I have performed so well in the last 15 years, I need more than what the salary standards are. So you can negotiate. You have a face value and you can say, I will come to your university, I will bring this and that. That is changing. So this is, and all other things, like every 4 years you have sabbatical and you have a lot of freedom, obviously. So the contract says that you are supposed to be there for 2 or physically you have to be there at the university in 2 days, for 2 days, and 1 day you should be approachable. So that gives you a lot of freedom also to travel. That's another part of the activity, that if you don't travel, you don't see people, so that's important as well. So that's why I was saying the path to professorship, it goes through habilitation, which is now being replaced by junior research group. So anybody who is finishing PhD here, say in France with Austrian, coming to EPFL or to Cologne or to Italy,
can after this postdoctoral fellowship take a position at this level, which is called either junior group leader, and this is for 6 years. So it has a planning horizon which is substantial. It will not allow you to buy a Lamborghini or to build a house, but it will give you 6 years of perspective that we can. So I think that is something which is important. Second thing is then for options, postdoctoral stage, there are several fellowships, and I think I must, having looked at the European Union as such, Germany is very generous in funding external people. You have fellowships of AD if you want to just visit for 3 months to know the lab before you say, before I go for 6-year decision. You have Alexander von Humboldt, which is also having a good visibility. They always claim that 80% of the Nobel Prize winners were all Humboldt fellows at some stage of their career. DFG, German Science Foundation, is giving a lot of fellowship. Marie Curie is something which is at the European level, but it allows you to go to different labs, even 2-3 labs you can choose. And for junior research group, there are options: Eminenter, the ERC early career, and W1 professorship. These are open. Sometimes you may have, this is called ad personam advertisement, when there is a person in the department and this position is already committed to this person. Then I think it's not, I mean, you can always apply, but the chances are not that great. And this qualifies you to the tenured professor, and that's where you are immune. At this point, you can also sit back and relax, stop your activities. It will be very hard to get you out of the system. But getting up to this stage is obviously, it's an uphill battle. You really need to have some skills, and that's something which is very important. Now, I know because Graciela, you also need to choose. So very quickly, there are a large number of supporting programs, and there are more opportunities than the myths. I just wanted to point out a few. There are generous mobility grants. You know, German government also have this so-called Chancellor fellowships, where you can just go for 10 days. You can choose 3, 4, 5 labs, and everything is paid. You can say, I want to visit these 5 labs, and my purpose is to, this is called Schnupperwoche, which is just means that you want to get to know people. So you go, you will have a host, they will show you around one day, and if you like the environment, you can stay there. You have long-term funding, 5-year plus. Most of the programs are like this. You have family support. In most of the cases, you get grants for taking your partner, spouse to for language course, providing if you have family, and you have dual career programs. You have lateral movement possibilities. You can move from one university's supportive system, and then most of the time, and I think I had this thing. I remember when I was finishing my habilitation, somebody said, what will you do now? Because before we appoint an Indian as a professor, because of the language barrier, whether it's French or in Germany, also the basic teaching is always in German. So you bachelor degree, there is no way to go around. Master courses are in the meanwhile all in English, and I think it's the same in many other European countries, because internationalization and diversity has become, for any progressive institution, the most important platform. So master, PhD level was anyway in English. So I started learning, and that's why I'm saying, no, I started, my language was not perfect, but I started teaching, and the students are very thankful. They accepted it. They even enjoyed, because it's new for them to have somebody where they have the feeling he may know the subject, but we know the language better. So it's a very good chemistry. Yeah, it worked very well. And then I'll copy this from Esther, that frustration tolerance. This is something which is very important, because you will always have somebody saying, I don't think that we are so far, and I've gone through it. Sometimes they are well meant, nicely formulated advices, but you should give yourself a chance. If the system accepts you, is fine, but otherwise the academia is so big, you will be absorbed somewhere else. But just don't believing on somebody else's advice, just don't say that I'm not going to try for it. Then I think this, I just wrote down after listening to discussion, that there are in Germany 2 clear paths. One is, if you want to say, like Arun was asking, if you want to say, I'm only interested in research, and I don't want to have the problem of teaching, no teaching obligation because I have language limitation, then there are positions which are called group leader positions at every chair, at every institute. These are permanent positions. So you have freedom of research, no teaching obligations. Research excellence is the sole criteria. You publish every year papers. You have early career scientific independence. Professorship is not the final destination. So don't think after 15 years I'm as good as my director, why I'm not having a professorship, because this will never come, because this is a so-called position in the middle column where only scientists are appointed, not professors and director. But it gives you, because you are just below this glass ceiling, so you are having, if something happens to this department or institute or this group, the heat will be felt by the director, so you are not going to be influenced. So that gives you, obviously it's a compromise that you say, okay, then I'm not aiming at professorship. So this is, and it also gives you international network, because most of these institutes, Max Planck, Fraunhofer, Helmholtz, Leibniz, they have lot of possibilities to invite foreign people. So every PhD student there is appointed, it's obligatory to invite this person for 2 weeks. So even if somebody is coming from China, the person will stay for 2 weeks. If he or she is good, then they will be appointed, and otherwise the person has got an experience and will go back. Limitations are, obviously the research agenda has to be aligned according to the research director, because he or she is getting the money. So it's a funding which is internal, you are being funded by the director. Salary is per tariff contract, it's a fixed salary. So there is no perks, no resources. If you want to go for a conference, you have to earn your own money. If you want to go or invite somebody and take this person out for a dinner, you have to see that you have resources of your own. So that's the second similar path is, you say, okay, I just want to do everything, earn a little bit more, and want to have a focus on applied research. And if you want to go for a professorship, you can have the same group leader position where you have freedom of research, limited because of the industry focus. Industrial needs is the main criteria, because industry is funding your research. Limited scientific independence, because you cannot publish anything. Most of the time it's Fraunhofer. You just, whether you're patenting or not, that also industry will decide. You just do it. It's a contractual research kind of thing. Your job is permanent. The only positive thing is you can negotiate some perks. Every industrial project allows you to take 5 to 10% as add-on on your salary. So that's one advantage, where you can match the salary close to the professorship, but it will not give you the privileges of a, you have in your industrial network. If you want to be, nowadays all projects are based on consortia. If you know someone, you can call and say, please join my consortium. Limitations are obvious. Research agenda is to be aligned according to industrial needs. So you cannot, there are very well defined markets, very well defined pillars of innovation, so you cannot do anything else. Visibility is limited. Maybe people in your group, in your institute know you, but outside world, academic world, will not know much about you or your work, because you are not publishing, and that's the main. And scientific publication and participation in conference is not the primary focus. You can get 1 or 2 chances if your director is not there and you want to represent, but it, yeah, this is how it, but this is the reality. That's why. Now, last slide, something based on today's discussion and my own lessons learned. You have to develop these survival skills at an early stage. You cannot wait and say, okay, I've gotten my PhD, what to do now? PhD is the best phase to train yourself, and there is no secret. That's the only good thing about academic world, is transparent like glass. You can see through. There is no mechanism to hide. And it is self-correcting. That's the best thing in science, and I think you know that. Second thing is that plan your next career very carefully. And being from India, and I was telling in the coffee break, I'm getting almost 8 to 10 applications every day. Some are really good and you want to write them, that I don't have a funding, but these are the options. Why don't you write a small proposal? Everyone says no. Oh, my contract is ending in 2 months and I need something immediately. But this, 6 months before that your contract will end. So what I'm saying is that these kind of excuses, you understand that so this lethargy of not bringing anything, there are no easy solutions. And I think all those who are sitting in the room and have, they can probably endorse it, that there is a struggle involved in every journey. So you cannot, but you have to make your own effort. So this is important, that you plan carefully, and just not because of the ease of funding. Going to a place which is not conducive for your family growth, which is not good for your personal, professional growth, just because there is a funding, I will say, think twice before you go. Keep your options open, because if you are thinking, okay, I'm as good as industrial research, as in, there is no this crossover. It's not like there's no forbidden gap here. Nowadays, people with lot of industrial experience are also invited to become professor. So that's very, very important to see that it works both ways. That's why German system has stopped this habilitation, this long 6 years qualification as a professor. If you have 6 years in industry and you come with a big project and you say, I will establish this center, like Mike Gretzel here, if he has that this vision, his technology being bought by several companies, and you say, okay, we can do something on photovoltaic. So you can also impose, you can change the system. So the only time you are denied a job when you don't apply. So don't think that, oh, I'm qualified, no one knows me. You should do it. Somebody was asking what is a perfect CV. Normally, it is very clear that people just look at some indicators. If it's an entry level position, most of the time people are not known by name. So what you see is the scientific age. Compared to your age, if someone is 32, has published 15 papers, and there is another person with 28 published 30 papers, there is a difference in the productivity. So the scientific age is considered. Gender, which is a good thing, is becoming more and more important. So if it is applicable, why not make use of it? And then dual career, if you have a partner in the same business or same profession, that also should be mentioned. Create your own network. Don't, I mean, you can always rely on your mentor, but your mentor also has his or her own agenda. So it's good to be part of that, but you should create something of your own. And there are lots of possibilities to get involved through micro volunteering. You can act as a graduate research assistant at the MRS symposium, apply for being on the committee, students committee, go to the students mixer, and so on, so that you know. And this also helps you to find mentors outside your research domain. So that's very important, because most of the big societies are having academic affairs committee focusing on young people. I think today every big society, whether it's ACERS, MRS, ACS, they are all struggling how to keep young people engaged. You go to a conference, but there is no guarantee you will return. Because first time when people go, it's not always because of the technical content, it's maybe because of the place or because your boss is sending you there. But you can bring back something and say, I would return because of this and that. So find your mentors outside. A reference from somebody else who is not in your field is giving you a lot of leverage over others. And then volunteering, you can say, oh, I'm a postdoc, how can I do? There is always scope for micro volunteering. A symposium organization is always possible. It is even considered better because you will have time. Apply for, find 3 big people and say, I just need your name, I will do all work. And then invite as invited speaker top people, and everyone will remember you. If you are inviting them, it's not costing you any money. It's just that you have to sit on the weekend and do some work. But it gives you a lot of visibility within the community. Like if you are inviting people for, and I'm sure if you invite here the 3 experts, they will definitely remember, oh, we were invited to EMRS because somebody from the ENHANCE network has put a good symposium. And there are mechanisms, the societies, housing symposia, they have money for networking dinner and so on. So you can invite them once again, say some words, and then things work on from there. And then remember, there is no one size fits all solutions, because you can see every story is different. What Esther told, what Austrian just mentioned, it can be whether you start in Lithuania and end in France, or you start in India and end in Germany. It has nothing in common. So these stories are different because we all have our way is of doing things. So I think that's why you should create your own space and then store. This is very, very important. And I think the final thing is, somebody was saying, I even don't know in which network and how do I create. So networks, social networks, you all know. Yeah, so nobody, you can go to Twitter or Facebook or I don't know all these things. I'm not. Same is with the networks are like the phone network provider. So if you are having a right contract, you can even use in a different domain or different territory the same facilities. So I think if you are very active with one society, it's not going to hinder you to be active in another society. So in terms of the bandwidth, it all depends on how you define it. So this is pretty much everything I wanted to say. And once again, summing up from the German perspective, it has changed a lot. There is a huge focus on diversity. So I was telling Paul, I was for 15 years the only chair professor coming from India. But in the last 10 years, if I see, almost like a dozen new professors have come at entry level, Indian, and there are many more Chinese. So the diversity aspect has become very, very important for the demographic reasons, for internationalization, and that's something which can be capitalized on. There are several mechanisms I already mentioned. I also have a slide on where you can find the resources, funding resources, but I'm here if there are any questions. Thank you.